And so this, we're doing The Great Red Dragon. This is the book, so we are doing, essentially, this is the kickoff of a mini-series that is going to be the Red Dragon mini-series. And so it is kind of functioning as a pilot for a whole new experience with the show. We are out of Italy, we are out of our first 2 years of crime procedural, so this is entering into a whole new chapter. For those of you who have read the book, we're trying to do some things that are different than the book, and as well as embracing a lot of the iconography of the book.
One of the gifts of the show was being able to tell the Red Dragon storyline, and since it had been adapted twice before, there was, of course, an awareness of things that had been done in previous adaptations and things that from the books that never made it into the adaptations that we wanted to explore in this storyline.
Well, I've seen both adaptations, and I've read the books, so I was quite familiar with the story. And I think that Brian has, as always, he's been quite true to the original, but he's had a couple of Brian surprises up his sleeve.
Hello, Dr. Lecter.
Hello, Will. Did you get my note?
I got it, thank you.
Did you read it before you destroyed it? Or did you simply toss it into the nearest fire?
I read it, and then I burnt it.
So much of the backstory between Will and Hannibal in the previous 2 adaptations was considerably thinner than the backstory that we had spent 2.5 years creating for the series.
I know it's been, people have told the story over and over again. We have the advantage over them is that we have 6 hours to tell it.
There's a tone in that book, a real complexity and a kind of, particularly with Dolarhyde, a poetry and very rich imagery with all the Blake paintings and so on. So you could examine, especially Dolarhyde, in a way that I think probably does justice to the novel in a way that hasn't maybe been quite so possible in a 2-hour movie.
So it recontextualizes dynamics in a way that even when we get into scenes that seem familiar because we've seen them a couple of times before, they're informed by relationships that those previous adaptations never had in their back pocket.
What were the yards like?
Big, fenced, with trees. Why?
If this pilgrim feels a special relationship with the moon, he might like to go outside and look at it before he tidies himself up. If one were nude, say, it would be better to have outdoor privacy for that sort of thing.
Second half of season 3 is Red Dragon. I haven't read any of the Thomas Harris books, but Manhunter is one of my favorite movies.
It was interesting because they had screened Manhunter at the Toronto International Film Festival. So many of the cast and crew went to see it, and I sat next to Maz.
We went to see Manhunter one night, yes, that's true. And I've never seen it actually. It's the original with Brian Cox. Yeah, it was fantastic. Obviously it's very 80s, but there was a lot of fantastic things in there, and it was really fun to see the characters. Especially, obviously, the Will Graham character was very interesting to see the difference, but also the 80s style they were doing it in, and it was wonderful to watch.
And he was snickering at some of the overtly 80s qualities of the show and the dialogue. And at one point during the screening, I leaned to him and I was like, don't laugh too hard because you're going to be saying the same shit. So, just buckle up.
I'll be a darling and slide the cursor down to the letter G. Give it a click and I'll be out of your hair.
I opted when this is like 3.5 years ago, whatever it was, when I started on the show, I didn't want to go back and rewatch Red Dragon or whatever it was. I don't think that would have helped, particularly because, we all had the novel, which is such an amazing piece of work and so rich, and you've got the blueprint for the inside of your character's head written by an amazingly gifted writer, imagined, dreamt up by him and given life. So that was enough.
This needs to be about the rejection of him by the family, which is what we're seeing killed, not about Grandma. Because right. I think Grandma feels like, I don't understand the connection if we're doing it simply without dialogue. Right. I think Grandma can be whatever we do for him in 11 or the next episode, or we can do Grandma. If this ep is Dollarhide flashback, I feel like this should be the rejections of the family, which left him with Grandma, and then we do Grandma in a subsequent episode.
Well, he had two families then at post abandonment. The one of the old folks home, his family was a bunch of tree trunks with blue veins, and then from there he went to his step siblings.
Well, and there was the housekeeper who loved him, right? He had that really great relationship with the housekeeper, and then she left him too.
Yeah.
Am I misremembering that?
No, it's all in there, but I
it's
guess
what
what
I'm
I'm...
The mother, right? The mother looked at him with disgust, and now he's recreating these crimes and putting glass or mirrors in the eyes of people so that he can be looked on worshipfully.
The first thing with a writer's room is hiring your writers, and it's almost like casting a show. You know, you've got to find writers that get your show, that have a voice, and that you think you put, 6, 8, sometimes 10 people in a room together for what might be 8, 10, 12 hours a day for months. That isn't just going to be a miserable place to be. So the first thing is you've sort of got to cast a room full of people you think will work, both for the show and just sanity-wise. This is the ep where he's getting in touch with Hannibal and going after Will. Like, this is the ep where he's in his full
Sort of like,
I am a god.
Check me out.
Before, interestingly, the opportunity for love and affection and all the things he is destroying weaken him and make him a changed man. I mean, I think, I think I said it last night, in a way for me, when Will says this here, we should be like, what the fuck are you talking about, save him? He's a monster. And then the next episode with Reba, we go, fuck, Will was right. There is that in this guy. It is there for Will to go for.
The writer's room on Hannibal, which is led by Steve Lightfoot and my partner in crime on the show, both as a producer and as a writer. And the writers, everyone approached the material with such zest and glee, and also pride. There's something very important about being a writer in this industry is we don't often all get to work on shows that we would watch. And so everyone in that room was a fan of the show and a fan of Thomas Harris.
We just started throwing it around. And the first few weeks you just throw around what ifs and hey, maybe, and sort of broad story shape. And then you get into episodes, and what is each episode. But in a nutshell, it's a bunch of writers getting together to throw the story around.
I feel like the mother is super important because it's the mother it's the mothers who he's degrading, who's fucking, who's doing it.
I agree.
But do we want to see her abuse him, or do we want to see her abandon him? Because he's gonna get abuse from the grandmother.
Right.
So isn't just abandonment the story point to hit with her? Just seeing her receding away forever from his life.
And kind of, shoot the breeze and just throw stuff around until it starts to coalesce and stuff starts to stick.
And it was fascinating to see how each individual writer brought a certain sense of their perspective to the storytelling. And we had Don Mancini, who had written all of the Child's Play movies, join us in the writing staff, and he is obsessive about Thomas Harris and was quoting lines from the book that then the other writers had to pick up and look and make sure that they're right, and they were like verbatim.
We'd earned the right to veer away in some respects from Thomas Harris's storyline, so as to both honor but also please people that know those stories.
I'd love something of you in a bathrobe, sitting at a desk, poring over this artist's conception of the fairy.
I'll stand by the window. Make sure you can see the fountain and the Capitol dome. The Red Dragon needs to be able to find this place.
Every now and then one of us would write a line or something into a script and they'd go, we've used that.
Because there were so many quotes from the book that had been peppered through the first 2 seasons that there were a couple of times where Hugh had called and said, I think we used this line in season 1, and I was like, fuck! Like, okay, I'll rewrite it. And so there was a couple of those that happened, and I'm surprised it was only a couple of them. And but yeah, we had to be careful and on our toes. And my challenge to the writers was, go back through everything. If you feel like we've used it again, let me know so I can cut it out.
But we hadn't used the story and we hadn't used Dolarhyde. And certainly for me, I was really excited to get to it. Because what the movies just never had room to do was give equal point of view to Dolarhyde as they did to Will Graham, as the novel always did. You know, so I was just looking forward to having 6 hours, not 2, to really make him an equal character in the drama. And once you did that, you revitalized the Will-Hannibal relationship because it became a triangle of sorts.
And so there was that aspect of like, oh, we have tread here before, but it felt like it warranted re-exploration given the new dynamics of our particular adaptation. And I think for some of the hardcore Hannibals, of which I count myself one, I wanted to see our version of Hannibal Lecter and our version of Will Graham having those conversations.
Have you ever seen blood in the moonlight, Will? It appears quite black.
Because I felt like that was the whole point of what we had been doing for the last 2.5 years, was earning the ability to tell that story in a slightly fresher way than it had been told before.
And I think, again, I mean, another factor is that the deepening tone, you know, from season 1 through to season 2 and 3, really kind of comes into its own in our telling of the Red Dragon story.
You know, some writers' rooms, there's a lot of team writing, and certainly comedy works like that more than drama. Pretty much all our episodes, someone would go off and write an outline and a draft, and they would own the script as much as possible. So we would break them all together, but we would write them individually. There would be a writer to each episode, and then once their draft had gotten into, you know, pretty much the shape we needed it to be, Brian and I would, you know, polish and tweak and you know, finish them.
Does Will think it's maybe him who's broken it? You know, I mean, what's there's like, does he leave something in there for them to go, oh fuck, there's a connection?
Brian has been very creative in terms of sort of augmenting it and, you know, subtly changing it for his own purposes and for the storytelling purposes. People who are Thomas Harris fans will appreciate it, will enjoy it. I don't think that he's made any real serious departures from the you know, the original text. That I don't think he's made any departures that will, you know, that will offend anyone. And hopefully, you know, the 6 hours that we have to tell the story will be satisfying.